Hey you! Do you own a EMD GP9?
No.
Is it starting to show its age? Want a new locomotive without spending millions of dollars? Don't want to throw it away, but you want to keep running it?
Yes.
Well, don't fret, my brothers, as EMD is here to answer your question. Bring in your crapped out locomotive and we'll give it a much needed makeover from the frames up at just half of the price. This was a mentality that EMD carried in 1992 when they made their attempt into the rebuild locomotive market and to compete with GE's then new Super 7 series of rebuilds. Was it successful? Was it worth half the price of a new locomotive? Well, let's get looking into the EMD BL20-2. Our story begins in 1954 when EMD introduced the GP9 following the sweet success of the GP7. These were upgraded with 1,750 horsepower compared to the GP7's 1,500 horsepower, thanks in part due to their new 567C prime movers, which helped with performing better in frequent service. Compared to the stylish cab units, they were more versatile and flexible road switchers thanks to their short and long hoods, which allowed for walkways around the locomotive. With their low hood design, this made them pretty versatile machines. They did the jobs that cab units weren't designed to do. And with that, over 4,272 locomotives were ordered between 1954 and 1959, making them among the most successful locomotives in EMD's history. By 1992, GP9s were now uncommon sights on America's railroads. Most companies had long since dropped this locomotive model in favor of more modern, advanced, and powerful designs. Even production of 4-axle locomotives was slowly coming to a close, with examples like EMD's GP60 and General Electric's B40-8W entering in the scene, which had 3 times more horsepower compared to where the series started in 1947. Any GP9s remaining on Class 1s were either stored or reduced to local and switching duties alongside clapped-out SW switchers of that time period. Thankfully, hundreds of them had found second-hand use on a number of short lines across the continent, as they proved to still be quite the viable machines after 38 years. It was also around this time that EMD took 3 worn-out Burlington Northern GP9s back into their EMD facilities to make the 3 demonstrators for their first new rebuilds, the BL20-2. When it came to specifications, they were 56 feet long, weighed 250,000 pounds, a new turbocharger compared to the old blowers. It retained its 567C engine that was given new power assemblies from EMD's 645 prime movers, an increase of 900 RPM, which in turn caused the horsepower to be boosted from 1,750 horsepower to 2,000 horsepower, alongside the addition of an AR-10 alternator and electric systems from their -2 series. So in hindsight, they had a lot of new advancements compared to where they started out. For the model name, the BL meant branch line, the 20 meant 2,000 horsepower, and the -2 referencing the -2 electronics. And with this, it was the first new branch line model introduced in EMD's catalog since the 1940s, with the ill-fated but stylish BL1 and BL2s. Amongst the reused parts with the frames, trucks, traction motors, and prime mover, the locomotive's physical appearance got a makeover with an all-new car body. It basically looked like a GP60, but you took away its muscles. Between May and August 1992, the 3 demonstrators were rolled out and put to use on EMD's demonstrator fleet, and were trialed out on Burlington Northern allegedly. So in theory, these locomotives were a good idea. It was to give railroads an opportunity to rebuild their clapped-out locomotives for half of the price of a new engine. And with its reuse and upgrade parts, it defeated the need of having to understand the new technologies. So this seemed like a pretty good idea, right? But did it work? Well, in spite of its demonstrations, the BL20 didn't generate a single order from any railroads. And you know how I said the BL20s were trialed on Burlington Northern? They were trying to market towards BN so they could rebuild their GP9s. But the Burlington Northern instead wed with the rebuild firm Morrison Knudsen, and thus led them to the GP28M and GP28P rebuilds. But what other reasons could there be? Well, a handful of factors. This could include the lack of benefits compared to regular rebuilds, railroads being more content with pre-existing locomotives, and, well, EMD's already declining reputation following a certain locomotive model. And the main issue, though, probably wasn't with the locomotive itself, but more so the rebuilt market as a whole. During this time period, locomotive rebuilds were already a saturated market with multiple third-party companies out there, such as Motive Power Industries, Morrison Knudsen, National Rail Equipment, etc. They specialized in more tailored rebuilds to other railroads, and let's be real, they had better customer service likely. And for a company like EMD to dive into this market, it just felt random, as the BL20 was a large contrast compared to other locomotives they were making around this time. It just felt too niche compared to EMD's current focus on developing modern robust locomotives, as railroads had long given up on new 4-axle designs. So in conclusion, the BL20 flopped for a multitude of factors. The saturated rebuild market, the better options from third-party companies, the lack of interest from railroads, pre-existing designs being more beneficial, EMD's declining reputation, and not being seen as, well, worth it to other railroads. If this was done years earlier when EMD was still at its peak, like let's say the 70s, then maybe there could have been some success. Or I don't know, if the SC50 never existed. And you may be wondering, what about the demonstrators built? Are they still around today? Well, they continued working in the Midwestern United States as a part of EMD's leaser fleet, before being sold to RailLink and settling into their new home on the San Joaquin Valley. Before being sold to the San Joaquin Valley Railroad in the state of California, where they were said to be good pullers and liked by the crews, according to one train orders post. However, with more emission-friendly locomotives entering the scene, the BL20s have been out of service since 2022, falling to ownership of BugX, a locomotive leasing firm in the United States. The trio of BL20s were shoved into a deadline in Stockton, California, where they were left to decay as of 2025. The BL20 didn't perform to EMD's wishes, and only served as a minor footnote in their history books, as an attempt to enter in the rebuild market, which ultimately led nowhere thanks in part due to the market. And while the trio did find a railroad that they can call home, they ultimately fell to the wayside and seemingly forgotten by the world amongst a fleet of neglected locomotives. In spite of this, many GP9s are still operating across the continent, from short lines to museums, to even Class 1 railroads. I guess EMDs truly won't ever die.